You have been a big proponent of the PLI scheme which the government has come out with, and you have traveled across various sectors. What was the reason for this? And if you can give us briefly the overall strategy which you are looking at through this PLI scheme to achieve.
I think there is no doubt in my mind that the PLI scheme launched by the Government of India for various product categories is an absolute game changer. And the reason I say that is because first, it helps Indian companies create large scale, which was really required to be globally competitive. It also helps companies build a strong and vibrant component ecosystem. It'll also help create Indian champions because, as we know, there is a parallel track for Indian companies wherein Indian companies can get benefits. If we take an example of mobile phone PLI, Indian companies can get incentives on all values of a telephone, whereas other companies get a value incentive on $250 and above. So this will definitely help build 10, 15, 20 champions across all product categories. As you know, we were one of the first companies to start off manufacturing of mobile phones with a new factory at Noida. We set up the factory in a record time of just about 5 months after getting the first PLI approval for manufacturing of mobile phones. We also tied up with a large brands and companies who have very, very dominant market shares, both in the domestic market and the international markets like US. So we were really the first off the block. And now I'm very happy to see that we are scaling up. We have reached a certain scale, and we hope to, in fact, set up our second plant under the PLI scheme, again at Noida for mobile manufacturing, which will have a much larger capacity of almost 35 million pieces per annum. And this is going to be one of the largest plants in India by an Indian company with an area of almost 1 million square feet. We have been selected by the Ministry of Electronics for the hardware PLI scheme. And we hope to roll out a first product by January, which could be laptops. And we're also looking at various other product categories in the IT hardware space. We're also one of the companies selected for the telecom PLI, and we are looking at the consumer premises equipment, things like modems, GPONs and routers. And we'll also be hopefully looking at the segment of wearables and the hearables, which is the true wireless sound, where we have a tie with a very prestigious Indian brand. So I think this is definitely an engine for growth for the company.
What is the kind of investment that you are looking at? And what is the kind of revenues do you think if you expect from this whole move?
The revenues that we're targeting, I think we will hit the ceiling revenues this year and hopefully next year. A point I did not mention, we're also selected for the LED lighting PLI, where the entire corpus is going on creating a component ecosystem. And once again, I would like to congratulate the Ministry of Commerce and DPIIT for having really listened to the voice of the industry and allocating the entire corpus onto creating a strong component ecosystem. And lighting was one industry where already 95% of the total Indian demand is being met through local manufacturing. So in that kind of industry, I think there was a need for creating a strong component ecosystem. And we've also participated in this and hope to get selected as one of the beneficiaries of this PLI scheme for LED lighting components.
So if you look at your existing revenue and with the PLI scheme, where would you be? What is the next 3 to 4 year plan that you're looking at?
Next year, we should be targeting at least around 20,000 crores, and this year at least around 12 to 13,000 crores, if not more, on a conservative basis. So that's the revenues that we are looking at. But as I said, eventually the vision of the company is that we should be in the top 10 EMS companies, global top 10 EMS companies in the next 2.5, 3 years. My understanding is that about 40,000 crores, we should be in the top 10 companies. And hopefully I see ourselves achieving that turnover in the next few years' time.
If you look at the global ODM players, most of them have factories in different locations across the world. As you now look at a pretty large growth, Would you be looking at that as an option?
If you see right now, our complete focus is on setting up our manufacturing footprint in India. And the reason I feel is that there can be no better place than India right now to set up manufacturing electronic hardware. And I think the reasons are very clear. We have a large pool of talent and labor. So, there's a huge competitive advantage. There are significant and amazing government policies and initiatives which have already been in place. And I talked about the PLI, there are schemes like SPECS and many more schemes which the government have rolled out. In terms of taxation, if you see, I think we have the lowest corporate tax anywhere in the world for new manufacturing units, which is around 17%.
Today with the PLI, are you competitive with China?
Yes, we are definitely are. And, the proof of the pudding, they says in the eating. And I think we were very excited and happy to announce our partnership with a large US company called Orbic, where we are going to be exporting our mobile phones to US markets. First, in fact, lot was already dispatched, and this is going to be apparently sold or bundled through carriers in US. So the fact is that customers are trusting us, are entering into contracts with us, and this shows that now as a country, thanks to the PLI, we've already become competitive. But the focus is going to be now on to ensure that going forward, we need to be competitive even without the PLI benefits, because 5 years is just going to pass like this.
What kind of value addition, if you look at, in the various products that you have, where will you reach once you go through this whole process, say in the next, 4 years or so?
Let me first start with the good news and the positive areas. So if you look at LED lighting, right, we are already at a value addition of somewhere around 35%. And I feel with the PLI scheme that has come in for LED lighting, we should immediately in the next 2 years immediately jump to about 60 to 65%. And if the IC packaging and the ATMP units also come up, which we might be also looking at in some times to come, I think we reach levels of even 80, 85%. So that's extremely positive. If you look at areas like LED TVs, right, the value addition was very, very low. It was hardly 10%. But thanks to the investments that we've also made and the industry is also making, I think we should very soon reach levels of 30, 35%. Mobile phone, yes, it is definitely, there's one area where we've not seen significant investments coming in. But the good news is that some plants are coming up, the display fabs are coming up. The PCB units, PCB unit, multi-layer PCBs are coming up. So there also we see value addition going up from, let's say, current levels, I feel, to maybe around 30, 35% or 40% in times to come.
One of the key pointers of the PLI is to increase exports. What are the challenges one has to surmount before we can be like a Vietnam or a China?
So I think, you have to look at the maturity level across each product categories and where the industry is. So for product categories which are highly mature, let's say like LED lighting, I think we could be looking at large export numbers in the next couple of years. I think, even though exports are very low, we could be looking at $6 to $7 billion worth of exports in lighting product categories alone. If you look at mobile phones, I think as a country, we're targeting $100 billion worth of mobile phones exports from the country in the next 5 years, which is large as compared to, I think currently we're at a level of hardly about $7 billion. I think it was in your publication alone, which mentioned that currently India imports laptops worth almost about $4.6 billion, if I remember that figure correctly. I think it's a very nice article you written. So the point is, first, you need to get the industry to start manufacturing for servicing the domestic market. Then once you build a scale and you build that component ecosystem which comes along with the scale, then you can start looking at the export markets.
So will you also look at acquisitions to build capacity if that is required?
I think one of the objectives of the company is that we want to get into more and more design-led manufacturing. Two, we also want to invest in backward integration, which really adds strength to the company, which builds a moat around the company's operations. So for that, I think we would be looking at both organic and inorganic, and we would definitely be open to acquisitions, especially in the area of design, right? Where we feel that some company which has already done a lot of work and it is an advanced stage in different product categories We would rather go in for an acquisition rather than trying to reinvent the wheel ourselves.
If you like this video, share it and subscribe to Business Standard. For more news, views and insights, log on to www.business-standard.com. Do also follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram and LinkedIn.